Hey guys, it's me Rebecca. So this will be the start of another weekly vlog. And so far today I've just done some chores and whatnot. I did some cleaning, laundry, the whole thing. I also did some work on my computer, aka mainly just edited the previous video and also create the thumbnail. And I did do some reading. I started a new book today, Weapon Witch by Kirsten Cicerelli. I took off the dust jacket, but this is a very beautiful naked hardback, and this is the sequel to Heartless Hunter, which is about this witch and this witch hunter who start courting one another to get information from the other, and along the way they do fall in love. And with Webber Witch, we follow the aftermath of the previous book's events 2 months later, and Moon, who is the witch, had fled the country with someone who she fought with someone else, who turns out to be this witch queen who is part of this trio of sisters who people thought was dead, but actually was all along alive. And she is engaged to a prince, kind of to ensure that Cressida, I don't know how to say that name, I'm so sorry. I do take notes when I'm so I don't feel like a bumbling idiot with these vlogs, which I mean, but they're also good for me to retain, but I will still forget anyway. Cressida, from getting worshipped so she can start war and on the old country, on the New Republic. And Gideon has tracked Woon down and is planning to kill her. And we see with Woon how she doesn't like being engaged, she doesn't like being this ploy for Cressida, but she has no other choice. It's either that the Blackguard, who is the people in the New Republic who kills the witches, kills all of the witches, or Cressida, who is not a good person, not a good witch really, on a phone, and will ensure that all of the witches are safe. And for one, the main goal for her is that all witches are safe. So for her, like the lesser of the two evils, and the thing that will allow her to accomplish what she wants is being on Cressida's side. And everything's fine and dandy until Woon and is at this concert her fiance is hosting for her to, I guess, celebrate their engagement, and she flees and it's mainly because the song being played on the piano, it reminds her of someone she lost, someone who died at the end of the previous book, and she's still dealing with I guess, the grief from that death. And she flees, and Gideon follows her to the powder room where he tries to kill her. He's unable to. This entire book so far just made me chuckle at times. And Cressida is able to hold him captive, not captive, but she's able to incapacitate him and imprison him and whatnot. And Woon leaves the powder room, and Cressida, she does whatever she wants to do to Gideon until she leaves. She's gonna hold him hostage, and Woon decides to free him, and that is after that he learns that Cressida has plans to resurrect her sisters and really take over, and that's not good because all three of them together, yikes. But by saving Gideon from Cressida knew it was Woon, because when a witch casts a spell, they leave like I guess a cast, like something to show that the spell was casted, and for each witch it's unique. And Cressida saw Woon, so she knows that Woon helped Gideon, and Cressida will want to punish Woon. So Woon has to create a new plan, and And we see how she starts this temporary, like, the truce between her and Gideon with her plans, and she'll break off her engagement and leave Cressida without any warships, and what she wants Gideon to do is smuggle her back into the New Republic to save the Syllable, who is being used to find witches. She's being forced to do so by the Blood Guard in whatever way, and yeah, we so far we see that they're on the voyage onto onto back to the New Republic, where they have to act like they're newlyweds. They're stuck in a cabin that's extremely small, like it's barely big enough for them to be in it together, and yeah, we see how they face the difficult task, because for them, they don't trust each other. Like, they've lied to each other, they've betrayed each other. He thinks she was helping Cressida all along when she wasn't, and she knew that he also thinks that she was in love with his brother. I mean, why would she accept his engagement in the first place if she wasn't? And yeah, and it's like we also see how well, like, even if how well she knows him, because she set her plan into motion way before he even agreed to this. So yeah, and we see, like, as well with Gideon, he does have self-doubt. Like, I mean, he thinks that he's not good enough for women. And I mean, they are of different classes in society, and that she can do better than him. We see that, but also what was making me chuckle throughout this entire novel is they're enemies. They outwardly act like enemies, but they can't help but be very drawn to each other and very aware of how being in close proximity to one another has an effect on them. Like, we see how he hesitates to kill her because he's so close to her, and it's like they're both in a way consumed by lust for one another. I think they're both in situations where they are extremely close, and yeah, I don't know, there was this part that were making me chuckle throughout this. But yeah, and so far I'm on page 110, and I'm having a fun time. But yeah, yeah, I think that's all for now, and yeah, I'll see you when I see. So it's the next day, and I know I'm wearing the same thing, but it's comfortable, and yeah. But anyway, I have done some work and whatnot, and I might go for a bit of a walk later on today. And I have done some reading of Rubble, which brought me on page 230, and I have to say, it's not even miscommunication. Gideon and Windows don't communicate properly with one another, like, which leads to a lot of misunderstandings. And I know that they don't trust one another because of the events in the first book, where they both betrayed each other and whatnot, but still, like, communicating would solve a lot of their issues, like, and probably prevent a lot of things. So yeah, like, and I don't know if it's just me right now, or but I'm just not as in this book as I was with the first book. Like, I just feel, I don't know, I just don't feel in it. I don't know. Yeah, and then we do see how we do see Gideon meet up with someone he fought alongside with during the revolution, a woman named Abigail, who after the revolution she left the New Republic and started work on as a crewmate on ships, and he suspects that she might be a spy, as with the fact, like, with this ship in particular, the fact there's no blood guards, and typically all ships going to the New Republic, there are blood guards to make sure there are no witches. With that, there are typically spies on board, and he thinks maybe Abigail is his spy sent onto the ship by the spy master, a woman named Hero. So he's trying to figure out if that's the case, and we see how even though she tries not to be inside, tries to tell herself that she has no reason to be, is jealous of Abigail and her closeness with Gideon. And yeah, I mean, It's like we also see how she has to figure out a way to get past hounds because of the fact there's no blood guards on board any ship going into the New Republic. There will be these hounds which are sniffing out witches on board, to like sniff out witches who might have stowed away or gone down under the blood guard's eyes. I almost think it's like them blood in a witch. I'm not entirely sure how it would work. But she has to hide from them and get past them, and she's looking for a place to hide while they're on board. We also see the kind of spell Cressida did cast on Gideon when he kisses Woon to hide her in the shadows, and Woon has an illusion spell on her to hide her true self in case there's blood guards. That's where there are police officers on board looking for her fiance, and that illusion started to wear off and she was unaware. And they were in a very public area, so yeah, he kisses her to put her in the shadows, and during that kiss he gets like this very strong burning sensation on the brand on his chest that Cressida had put on him, and he thinks it might indicate that he might never be with another woman besides Cressida, but it seems like when later on he does allow Abigail to kiss him and he kisses her back to prove her theory. It seems like it's only when he's with Woon that will happen, which means he'll never be with Woon. And we see how some revelations between Woon and Gideon are made. She only accepted his brother's engagement because his brother was the safer option and she trusted him. She doesn't trust Gideon anymore, as he did say he was disgusted by her because of the fact she did kind of not lead him on but deceived him by not being open about the fact she was a witch, and also the fact he just handed her right over to be purged and killed. And she wasn't in love with Alex, but maybe over time she would have been, and it does make Gideon think about all of the lies and beliefs he had about her and about their relation. And we do see how she is able to find a way past the hounds and back onto the land of the New Republic, and she cannot go back to her former residence as it was given to the son of the Great Commander, who is now commander of the New Republic, so she'll have to go to Gideon's apartment. He's arrested when they get to the apartment and brought to the commander, who knows about what happened, and that Woon's fiance did give Cressida her ships so he can reach war on the New Republic and get Woon back, and Gideon is planning to use Woon not as a pawn, but like, oh god, I don't even know what the proper term is, but he'll give Woon back to her fiance in exchange of him just taking the ships from Cressida and ending the whole thing, and yeah. And we do see how Isabel is brought in and confirms that there was a fourth daughter, that there is another sister that Cressida has that she'll be using, but that daughter was smuggled away because of that. And that a spell was cast upon her to prevent any witch from finding her and whatnot. And Gideon wants Isabel to tell him exactly where the fourth daughter is, and he has to free her in order to get more answers, and she's not going anywhere without her daughter. And Gideon and when they're on this like rescue mission, because the daughter was kind of given to someone else as their guardian, and we see that during this they air out their issues like how she doesn't trust him because he betrayed her, he doesn't trust her because she lied to him, she didn't tell him that, she couldn't tell him she was a witch, but still, and how they're essentially each other's weaknesses. And she finally learned about Cressida, what Cressida did to him, because previously she just thought he was disgusted, revolted by her, when really that wasn't the case, and how it will prevent the two of them from ever being together. And she he decides she'll try and break this spell, find a way to. And while hiding from the blackguards shooting at him for taking it home, Moon has like a vision of an older Gideon with children of his own, and she doesn't see the mother, and it's like makes her wonder about childhood, about which something she never considered, as it was something she was always being haunted, and there was visions she would be purged and whatnot. So she does want to be with Gideon, it seems like, and I don't know if that vision was like her own future, if it was like seeing Gideon through the eyes of her older self or what, but yeah, I'm intrigued. And it seems like with the events of the previous book, no one trusts Gideon in the Blackguard anymore. Like, he allowed himself to practically be seduced by the Crimson Moth, this villain that he had been hunting for 2 years. Like, she was right in front of him and didn't see that. Like, a lot of people just don't trust him anymore, and he has to now work to regain that trust. And I don't know how that will happen, considering he did just try to kidnap the child of a syllable, someone they're using to find witches. Like, yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that will go. I'm really like seeing the Wood and Gideon hopefully learn to fucking communicate through. I think they're both teenagers, so they're still extremely young, but still, like, they just don't know how to talk to one another. Like, their whole thing's this written with the fact like they don't talk to one another, that they create their own assumptions about the other person. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's all for. So it's the next day, and I've just done some work and whatnot. I also had to go out and run some errands. I had to get an oil change and whatnot, and I did go to the library book sale. I didn't really get anything huge, man. But while I was waiting for my oil change, which took a while, I did do some reading of Rubber Witch Premium, page 360, and even with all that of my errands today, I'm like that. I'm so tired, so I'm sorry if I'm a bit incoherent. But we do see how Gideon, I'm so sorry if you hear that. I have my camera lens cap rattling, I'm so sorry. But how he is kind of trying to have the blackguards kind of trust him and not arrest him again or execute him for sympathizing with witches. Like, they already don't trust him because twice he has fallen in love with a witch and been deceived. So yeah, he's trying to figure out how to make them believe his plan that he's gonna betray Woon, and by killing the Cressida's sister and handing Woon over to the Blackguard. And it seems like he wasn't gonna do that. Like, we've seen like how he's had opportunities to arrest Woon when she tries to escape, and he just lets her go. And how he even in a way assists her by having the Blackguards go to the opposite end of town when she takes Alex's boat from the harbor. They all believe she's gonna get on a ship and try to flee, so there's guards all over, and he doesn't do that. And he does get arrested, he doesn't get in prison, but also we do learn who the missing sister is, and it would be a major spoiler to say who exactly it is, but it is one of the characters who are quite established in the story. And yeah, and Moon does escape with the Sibyl and her daughter, and she goes back to the other country where she was planning to just steal like spell books from Cressida and before moving on. But the Sibyl, to her, the only thing that matters to her is her daughter, and if Woon's with them, like, they will never know peace, so she doesn't bend in this one, which, yeah, Woon also lost Alex's boat, which was enemy. And she is arrested, she is captured by Cressida, who does punish her for her previous actions, and she's about to kill him. Like, she's whipping her and then Serafina, the woman that Moon is determined to rescue in a previous novel, gets Cressida to stop, and Cressida goes back to the New Republic, brings Moon and others with her, and war happens. Like, it seems like Cressida also didn't tell Moon's fiance that Moon is back, that she's still alive. Like, she is using him to carry out her plot. And you see how easy that Cressida takes over the New Republic by using her magic. She is able to make the ships invisible, so it's quite difficult for the Blackguards to shoot at the ships, and quite easy for the ships to shoot at the Blackguards. And Cressida takes over, and we see how it's essentially like the woes are reversed with the New Republic and the witches, whereas we've seen how the New Republic, they've hunted witches, they've arrested them, they've killed them, they've interrogated them, all of that, and at times they would make events out of it. Like, they would bring in the witches to plea or to be publicly purged while at a dinner party, while they're having their after dinner coffee. And we see the same thing happening with the witches arresting and bringing in and interrogating and killing the Blackguards, and seeing how they want them to beg for mercy. Like, nothing has changed, and Moon, she doesn't see that change will happen. And when she and Gideon escape the witches and the Blackguard and go to another house, the people there, like, what is the word? It's like the son of the house owner, I don't know, who was also high in society, his lover, someone who's the kitchen staff. It's like, maybe there's a third option, and one's like, she doesn't see that ever happening. Like, she doesn't end this cycle, this war ever ending, this third option ever coming into fruition. So I'm curious if there will be a third option or not. Just like, I am curious what Cressida will do to Moon and what she will do to her sister once she gets her hands on her. And so far I think I'm intrigued through. I would have to warn you, like, I am liking and seeing how one was correct in the sense, like, both Cressida and the New Republic, they are not good people, they are evil. And I'm saying Cressida specifically because it seems like even the witches don't like the fact she is Korean. Like, a lot of them, they are only unloyal to her because they're afraid of her, because if they're not loyal to her, she will execute them. So I am again seeing the two evils, and how with the fact they're two evils, even through their enemies, they're the same in their treatment of the other, and as well their treatment of others, of the citizens, because we do get a list of, not commands, but it's like rules that Cressida wants her subjects to be under, and it's like the nightly waits, a curfew, being loyal and not threatening punishment. Like, nothing has changed for the people. Like, to them it's like one evil is just being placed by another controlling government. So I think that's what I'm liking the most so far. Is like the whole, I guess, political stuff about it, I guess. And I think that's all for now. So it's the next day, and I've just done some work and whatnot, and I did finish the Wobble Witch, and I did like it. I think it was definitely more focused on Gideon and Moon's story, and a lot more personal romantic scenes between the two. And for some reason, like, I think I've mentioned earlier in this vlog, I just didn't feel as into the sequel as I did with the first book when I read it earlier this year. Again, I think it was the same thing, but yeah. But we do see how Woon is, how she's impacted by that punishment that Cressida inflicted on her, how she's so terrified of Cressida now, and seeing what she's capable of and whatnot. Like, she is afraid of her wrath, and so afraid that she is considering, I guess, the more cowardly route of running away and not protecting or saving the witches who are fearful of Cressida herself, fearful that they'll never know freedom now while they're under Cressida's rule, willing because Cressida demands that they're loyal or will kill them. So yeah, and when she's not the biggest believer that there's a third world, like a third world where everyone will know peace and whatnot, or both the witches and non-witches, I guess, will live peacefully. Like, she's never lived in a world like that, so she just doesn't think that kind of world exists. Like, one will always have power over the other, there will be no fair play, nothing. So she is afraid. And she does try to run away, and Gideon does let her, and she even gets on the last train out of the city to the countryside, and yeah, decides to stay behind because she sees Gideon is about to be killed, and she rescues him, and yeah, she decides to go back to try and fight, because she saw a vision where she is the mother to the 3 children. She saw in her vision earlier that it was actually her future, and she wants to know that future. She wants that future with Gideon, and to her that is worth it. It's now worth fighting for the future, fighting for hopefully this happy ending. So yeah, and you do see how it's with the Blackguard as well, and it doesn't seem okay. With the Blackguard in witches, there are people in them who are unhappy with the ways their I guess leader is doing things. And while some might be secretly rebelling, others are afraid. And we see with the Blackguard that there are members who are more loyal to Gideon than they are to Noah, who is the current leader, who after Woon escapes him, he tells his sister Lila to go and try and capture her, and Lila refuses. He has Lila chained up to the basement of the house, and he knows what will happen to women during wartime, so yeah, an asshole. And there's another instance where we see him being an asshole, but none of the Blackguards do that. Like, yeah. Yeah, and they get a note from Harold while she and a witch, Juniper, are back in the capital trying to find some answers, trying to equip people to their cause. Who say that they got information that where Cressida hid her sisters, and that she's on her way to recast a spell that will preserve them, and she has to do it on a new moon in order for it to be kept for some time. And Woon and Gideon go to that location to try and destroy the bodies, only to learn that they were led into a trap, that Harold was taken hostage, and Juniper, who is in love with Harold, rescues her. Like, we see how people do dumb shit for love. It's like, I mean, but still. And Woon, she's very aware of the role she plays in the resurrection of these sisters, and to prevent that, she tries to kill herself with Gideon's gun, for she knows she won't be able to pull the trigger, so she has Gideon do it, which he does unwillingly, and it breaks him, and yeah, she does, I guess, I was about to say, I guess that's a spoiler, but whatever, but she does die briefly, so we just get the rest of the scene from his POV, and we learn that when Moon ended the curse on him, which it was a dumb true love curse. Like that was generally the curse that Cressida pulled on him. I was like, really that straightforward? Wow. But she ended that curse, but also put a spell on him, preventing Cressida from ever touching him. And with her plans ruined, and she is quite angry, you can imagine, and she tries to lash out on Gideon and tries to hurt him in retaliation, and he fails to do so. And we see how Cressida is actually used to resurrect Moon, who an ancient, which I guess is essentially a god in this world, who's been around to try and do right, who has been on Earth to make sure all is provided with riches, and with seeing their leader, I guess, no longer in so much power, or someone like in a vulnerable position, and witches who are against her now feel more confident in defending Moon, Gideon, and the others on their side from the witches who are generally on Cressida's side. And here we see the end of Cressida, we see Moon's resurrection, we see the start of change occurring in the epilogue. We see Moon and Gideon have already married, and that things have changed, with some witches being put on councils. From what I understand, 13 council members, and 6 are witches, 7 are non-witches, so a bit of an even split through. The non-witches are still the majority, but not like so high. And you see the start of that happening through. We still see how one is still hesitant that this change will be successful, that she is still afraid that something will go wrong, and Gideon does reassure her that even if something does go wrong, they'll just keep trying. So yeah, overall, I did like this sequel, and even with my issues, I guess, and I did give it 4 stars. And the next book I will be starting, which I think I'll probably be starting tomorrow, is Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan LeFun, which I believe is a vampire novel that is even older than Dracula. Let me see what this is actually about. It's isolated in a remote mansion in a Central European forest, Laura longs for companionship until a carriage accident brings another young woman into her life, the secretive and sometimes erratic Carmilla. As Carmilla's actions become more puzzling and vital, Laura develops bizarre symptoms, and as her health goes into decline, Laura and her father discover something monstrous. So, yeah. This sounds interesting. I'm very much excited to read this, and yeah. And I think that's all for now, so I'll see you when I see you. So, it's the next day, and I've just been out running some errands. I had a doctor's appointment this morning. Nothing better, it's this an annual thing, so yeah, got all of that sorted. And I also did quite a bit of reading. I know I mentioned yesterday I was going to start Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan LeFun. My edition has some intro, or is edited by Carmen Maria Machado. And so far I am 102 pages in, and I do have to say I'm liking it so far. I don't feel really like in the story, but that's just because I've just felt tired all day for some weird reason. I know the reason, and it's because for some reason I woke up at 4 in the morning, and I could not fall back to sleep. So yeah. But I have to say, with this edition, there's some very beautiful drawings. Like, I'm trying to find some, and there's like one in particular that was like, okay, I don't have a tripod, but this, oh my word, that's beautiful. But I also like how they're done, because typically, like, with the fact Laura, the main character, she's wearing like a white dress, while Carmilla, it looks like she's wearing black. Like, the way they're dressed and the way they're drawn, it's like almost opposites, and yeah, I just find that's really interesting, that choice. But yeah, and with this we do start the story by meeting Laura, and it seems like she's had quite the isolated upbringing in a sense. Like she lives in this nice manor with her father. Her mother died when she was an infant, and she was raised by a governess. She also has, oh god, there's a proper term, a tailor or someone who makes clothes, and there's a bunch of servants and attendants and whatnot. But she doesn't have any friends, and there's no houses that are relatively close to theirs. The closest village is quite off. Like it's always just Laura and her father, and it's quite isolating. And when the story begins, Laura's father learns that a general friend of his who was supposed to come and visit has delayed this visit as his niece, who he was going to bring along with him, has died from an illness. And from the letter the general sent, it concerns Laura's father. Like the general is quite struck with grief, and he thinks his niece's death is to be blamed on someone who was living in his house, and he will spend the rest of his days hunting them. Like he's a bit incoherent in his letters. He's not making much sense. Like they're worried about him. And later that night, while Laura and her father and the governess and the tailor are outside just looking at the stairs, a carriage crashes nearby, and this woman comes out of the carriage, and she's worried about her daughter who was knocked out in an accident, and she plans to go into the village to find some sort of inn that will keep her daughter for 3 months while she's away, because she has to reach her destination immediately. Laura's father, no, let her stay. And her mother says that she has some sort of illness and whatnot, and yeah, and she just leaves. And after again this reassurance that her daughter will be safe, which is yeah, quite odd. And Laura, when she sees this girl in like proper lighting, is shocked because this girl looks a lot like this woman who visited Laura when she was quite young at night. And Laura thought it was a dream, and it doesn't seem like it was, because when a servant touches the spot on the bed the woman was laid on, it was quite warm. And it seems like the servants or the governors tried to pass it off like, oh, one of them laid with Laura, like next to her. And the girl does wake up and says she saw Laura in her dreams as a child, and we see the two become close, and we see how Laura's drawn to this girl, finding her extremely beautiful, and the two do become extremely close. Like I would say it's more on a friendly way, because they do kiss and whatnot. So yeah, but Laura does notice that this girl has an odd way of speaking and acting. That she's not exactly open about herself. Like all Laura knows is that her name is Carmilla, that she's from a witch family, even who they won't tell Laura her last name or the name of her estate or where she's from. Like it's quite odd, and she behaves in a way that frightens Laura at times. Like she'll be nice, womanly nice, kind, gentle to Laura, and then like she's quite woo and insulting. And we see how she doesn't like the traditional funeral procession that passes them, like saying it is an insult to her and her religion, her beliefs. Like she isn't exactly clear about who she is, and that her character just intrigued me in the sense like she tries to get extremely close to Laura, and Laura does develop some symptoms that this girl Carmela does have later on. We see how Carmela is ill of something, that she's prone to seizures. She tells Laura she locks her doors because of assassins, and it came after her when she was younger, a habit that Laura has taken. And Laura has noticed that there's other things about her that to her at this time seem strange because all she's known is like the ways of life in the household. Like she doesn't know that ways of life for other people are different because she notices that Carmilla never kneels to say her nightly prayers. She never prays with them at the table, and she always makes sure to come downstairs after their morning prayers. And Carmilla, for some reason, like she'll come downstairs like early afternoon around 1, which is quite weird. And let me see. Let me see Laura start having these very interesting, that's to say, dreams. And after she sold a charm to ward off vampires, specifically Polish vampires apparently, she sleeps for the night but has zero dreams whatsoever, and she doesn't feel rested, and she doesn't look rested. Yeah. And she's getting worse, and one night she sees Carmela standing in her room, like covered in blood, which is the first image I showed you. Laura goes to Carmela's room to check on her when she won't answer her door. The attendants break it down, and Carmela's missing. Like, they searched the entire house for her just to find her in, what was it, like, the drawing room, or a room that's just off her bedroom, where she apparently was, even though they thoroughly checked it. Apparently she sleepwalked a bit, which is quite interesting. And with Laura, a doctor does come to see Laura, and she tells him of her symptoms and the strange dreams she's had. Well, I don't think all of them, but... And he talks to her father, and they talk to her. He mentions that in her first horrible night, she mentioned like 2 needles piercing her skin, and he asks her to show the skin to him, and when she does, he notices like there's a weird blue mark on her skin, so it's like something bite her, or like what's going on, like it's all quite strange to me. And yeah, and Laura, Carmela, the governess, and Laura's father, they go to these ruins that were once her mother's ancestors' home. That family name has since like ceased to exist, and on the way they went into the general friend who did send a letter saying that he was on his way, who they didn't know exactly when this because the letter got delayed. And Laura's father invites him to come along, and the general just tell the story of the night his niece started falling ill, and after attending a ball in which they both met this lady and her mother, who the general knew stories about him, not stories, but stories of his, and they acted like they knew him, and yet he was like, where have I met you before? It was all quite odd. And the interesting thing for me is that the lady's name is Nevarka. I probably butchered that, I'm so sorry. Which is the same name belonging to someone who had a portrait drawn of them that was in Laura's mother's possession, and the portrait's from like the 1600s. I think this is like 1800 something, and America in a portrait. This happens to look a lot like Carmela, so it's like, what is that all about? And yeah, that's where I'm up to. I think that what I'm about to continue on with is after the ball, and seeing the general's niece fall ill. So yeah, I'm just curious about where that's gonna go, and I'm curious about like Carmela and her different moods, about what exactly her deal is, and yeah, so far I'm liking it, I think. Yep, quite short. Yeah, I think that's all for now. I also just forgot to mention this. After my doctor's appointment, I went to Trader Joe's and the Dollar Tree, and at the Dollar Tree I did find Love and Fury by Samantha Sylvia, which this cover is beautiful, I should say, but yeah, I picked this up as you can tell. And this takes place in August of 1797, and midwife Parthenia Bankinsop has delivered countless babies but nothing prepares her for the experience that unfolds when she arrives at Mary Wollstonecraft's door. Over the 11 harrowing days that follow, as Mrs. Blenkinsop fights for the survival of both mother and newborn, Wollstonecraft recounts the life she dared to live amid the impossible constraints and prejudices of the late 18th century, rejecting the tyranny of man and marriage, risking everything to demand equality for herself and for all women. She weaves her riveting tale to give her fragile daughter a reason to live, even as her own strength wanes. Wollstonecraft's urgent story of loss and triumph forms the heartbreakingly brief intersection between the lives of a mother and daughter who will change the arc of history and thought. So yeah, I heard interesting things about this and I'm very much intrigued about it, and now that's all. So it's the next day and I've just done quite a bit of work, and for some reason today I've just been tired all day. I don't know why. Right now it's like I feel like the first time where I feel coherent enough to update you guys. I don't know, I'm so tired. I did sleep well last night, so I don't know, I think it's just a me thing. And yeah, but I have done quite a bit of reading, and I have a couple of updates. First off is I did finish Carmela by Joseph Sheridan Lefun, and I did like it. I gave it 4 stars. With what I read today, we did get a continuation of the general's story of how this person, what was it, Mararka, how they became a guest in his house, and that story is quite similar to Carmela's in the sense like the person is Mararka. Like her mother tells the general that she's quite ill. She had a fall from a horse and it shocked her, and she cannot really endure any activity of that sort. And the mother has to go away on urgent business for a few weeks, and kind of forces the general to take Mararka in. Like, she asks him if he will, and typically he would think about it, but he was kind of ambushed, and he agrees. And we see Mararka, she acts like this charming individual to his niece. It's like a pattern of behavior, like a reason to stay, and charms to ensure they are liked, and to feel sorry for her and her situation, sort of thing. And when Mararka stayed with the general and his niece, the pattern continues. Something that Laura herself does point out, like how Mararka behaves. How Carmela behaves. I'm sorry. Mararka said she was sick. She still is she is quite weak from an illness she had. She would lock herself in her rooms, not go downstairs until 1 in the afternoon. She also had a habit of wandering around, and the general's niece also fell ill with the same symptoms as Laura, and the general tried to learn more about and learn the story of vampires instead, and how there was a woman named Mararka who, after a vampire was killed, her body went missing from together on it for me. That whole thing just didn't make sense, and the general was given a letter to give to the priest and clergyman, and if they were in there he could read it, and he does, and yeah. He ends up hiding in Laura's room and with his sword and waits, and he sees Mararka, or Camilla, who fled when he attacked, and after which his niece did die, and shortly after he recounts his tale, Carmela and the governess joins Laura and a whole gang, and the general does attack her, recognizing Carmela as Mararka, and she flees and whatnot, and they all go back to the manor, and they all keep Laura company that night. Servants and the governess, they stay on the bed, while the gentlemen, they're outside, and Laura notices she's getting better, she's feeling better now that Carmela is gone. They go and dig up the original Mararka's grave, and when they do, like America, the original, has been dead for over 150 years. And yet, her body looks like it was buried yesterday. Like they put a stake in her heart and cut off her head, and then that Reign of Terror, which went by, this whole story is maybe 140 pages, if that, and it went by quite quickly, which is something I liked, but I kind of wish we saw, I guess, more of the characters. And I do like how Laura tells the story a decade after its passed, and it still has affected her. The short time period has still affected her greatly, and she ends this novel with just telling us facts and information, and yeah. But yeah, overall I did enjoy this, and I gave it 4 stars. And now the next book, and after I finished that, I did start The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton, and this takes place in 1866, and Walter Moody has come to stake his claim in New Zealand's gold rush. On the stormy night of his arrival, he stumbles across a tense gathering of 12 local men who have met in secret to discuss a series of unexplained events. A wealthy man has vanished. A prostitute has tried to end her life. An enormous cache of gold has been discovered in the home of a luckless drunk. Moody is soon drawn into a network of fates and fortunes that is as complex and exquisitely ornate as the night sky, which they invoke in a mid-19th century world of shipping, banking, and gold rush boom and bust. The Luminaries is at once a fiendish, clever ghost story, a gripping page-turner, and a reinvention of the lore and power of the Zodiac. And where we start with Moody entering the lounge of the local hotel where the 12 men already are, and we quickly learn why he's there. He's there to dig up gold. We learn that he's an educated gentleman, originally from Edinburgh. He did go to law school, but he didn't take the bar exam, so he's not an official lawyer, I guess. And we see that it looks like even to him that this might be a it's not to him. Within the chapter, one paragraph to the next, we kind of change perspectives from Moody to this gentleman named Balfour, who tells us this was prearranged, this meeting of the 12 men, and that there was someone outside who was supposed to kind of discourage people from going inside this lounge, this hotel lounge, and give them tickets to this feature where there will be alcohol. So yeah, but Moody was already in the hotel before this man could be set up, and Balfour, he takes it upon himself to really learn about Moody, about why he's there, what his motivations are, and we learn that Balfour, he kind of looks down on Moody in the sense he thinks Moody is this kind of poor individual who thinks he deserves everything, who thinks things will be handed to him on a silver platter. Balfour sees himself as this entrepreneur, this self-made man who came from nothing, and we also learn that Moody, he was a stowaway on this passenger ship, and that he had quite a scare on that while on board, as he saw some dead men and felt a spirit linger. And we also learn he has bad history with his father, who he was never close with. His father, after his mother died, married his stepmother, and that whole marriage was not a good arrangement. The father, he abandoned the stepmother with nothing. Moody took it upon himself to take care of her, and the father fled. And Moody later found his father in New Zealand with fortune and a new wife, and he learns his older brother, who he hadn't seen in years, was in on the plans. And it's also quite funny because Moody notices the other gentlemen in the room, they all are it's very obvious they're listening into his conversation with Balfour, even though they're doing a horrible job in pretending they're not. soon they all and yeah. And I would say I'm intrigued to see where this happens. Because I don't know if it's because of the book or because I was so tired earlier. I just didn't really feel like I was getting into the story. Like I kind of understand what's happening, but I don't fully understand. So I don't know if it's a me thing or the book, but I'm gonna give it a bit more of a chance. I'm gonna see how I feel about it tomorrow, and then I will make a decision. So yeah, but yeah, that's all for now. So I'll see you when I see. Just done some work in Wana, and as you saw, I did go out today. I just did my grocery shop, and I did go for a beautiful walk. It was in this field that was just off like the main shopping street that we go to, and yeah, quite beautiful. And it has gotten warmer. It's about 80 degrees, and the sun has come up. And before all that, I did do some reading of, oh my god, this brick, the luminaries, and yesterday when I updated you, I was on page 42. I'm now on page 106, and I do have to say, I think it was just me yesterday. Like, I'm not fully into this 800-page work, but I'm definitely intrigued, I think, to see how all of these characters come together, and yeah, really just to see the story unfold. So what I watched today was Beaufort telling Moody about why he shouldn't trust the captain on the ship he came on, saying the man is a murderer and he needs Moody's help. Moody, because of the storm, he had to his bunk or get off the ship through like a chair, and his luggage is still on the ship. So he will have to go back to retrieve that, and Beaufort wants his help to try and get something back. And the tale essentially is a politician the same politician who gave Beaufort his boat that's really set off his shipping business. He's in town. He was into town on horseback, and when that he came across this house where he and two of his assistants, they knocked on it to ask for a glass of water, and when they entered, the light, they saw lights on when no one answered, and when they answered, they saw that person, the men, and they went along, they continued on the way, and they found the woman who was unconscious, and anyway, then Beaufort's friend, his luggage went missing. There was like in a shipping container that disappeared, and Beaufort suspects that maybe this captain was responsible. The politician's house before a tale on how essentially he ended up having an affair with the captain's wife, and he learned about it and forced him to sell a boat to him in order to protect his reputation. He was gonna blackmail him, and the captain had had some paperwork in place to make it look legit and whatnot. And the politician wanted to save his reputation and still have a chance to win the election. He never saw the money from that sale. We also learned that the captain gave him another name, the same last name as the man who died, and that the captain's wife, it seems like, came about and claimed to be this dead man's wife in order to inherit his house, which is it's a bit questionable. It's because this guy was a bit of a hermit, he had no friends, no relatives, he had no next of kin that they were able to contact. Like his property went to the state, it seems like. And Part 4 is told all of this over graphics, and he learns that the politician has a copy of this contract, which happened to be in that luggage that went missing. And yeah, and the politician, it seems like he wanted the contract to prove that the cell is false because the captain used a false name. And before it understand how the politician that his luggage is missing, only that it's been delayed, giving him time to figure out like how to get it. And really we see how there's a priest that was nearby. It seems like he was like reading something, and they were just having this conversation, and apparently they were not very quiet. Like they were talking quite loudly, and the priest mentions that he did go to the dead house to perform like some not burial rites, but death rites, it seems. And he noticed in a fireplace that there was a piece of paper, a contract with the dead man's name and two other people, one of who is the woman who was found unconscious near the house. And it's getting an extended story of that, and I guess the priest's like experience with that woman. Well, in a sense, because she was brought into this like jail that he was working at because she did overdose, and she needed time to get sober and wake up and whatnot. So yeah, and before he goes to the docks to investigate a missing case, where he meets this native man who knew the deceased and was on his way to the house the night when he saw Foreman. So we were the politician and his assistants, and there was a fourth man. So yeah, not a lot, but I mean, again, this is a 800-page book, and yeah, I think I might be doing some more reading. I don't know. I'm just not sure about what my plans are for the rest of the day, cause I do need to go outside to clean up some leaves, and we will see what the day takes me. But that's all for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, tell me what you've been up to recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, all those links are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time.